Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Nature Echoes on this Sunday, 13th of August, 2023. So thank you very much for joining me yet again for our weekly time of echoing news, stories, poetry and art, and connecting all this to nature folklore and our precious water, the holy wells, the woodlands, the hedges, the wildlife. And right now, it's harvest time, of course, as well. So hail, whole, and holy good health to you all. I look forward to joining you. I've got tech issues at the beginning, as usual, but through this edition, I'm going to be covering a mixture of subjects. I'm going to get my pictures up, try that out. There we go. And I thought I'd share much more milder, perhaps easier to understand edition today. After the deep, thought-provoking, very complex subjects, I think they were over the previous few weeks. So today's subjects, they're quite hands-on. And actually, the main subject might be quite surprised I'm even bringing that to you. Because it's going to be on the fringe of what you may imagine nature folklore is. Anyway, I'm going to talk about that a bit later. I'm doing a bit of following up to the lovely reactions to last Sunday's Cauldrons of Poesy, which gave a reaction. I was very surprised, a very good response. Yeah, I'll talk about that. And the amazing response as well, the Lughnasadh Grandma's call on Sleeve and Kayak Bearer, otherwise better known to a lot of you as Loughcrew. And there's been amazing publicity for Kate and Alan Burrows' West Country Willows, their latest project and works. I'll talk a bit about that because it's quite amazing. And right now, this weekend, it started yesterday, Heritage Week in Ireland. And it's going to be including a Hawthorne Day, which I'm pretty excited about. That's actually going to be next weekend. And as I say, the main feature I'm going to keep quiet about for now, as it is very fringe to nature echoes and nature folklore. But to me, it's about what happens to us when a community gets together and when we actually apply the local folklore into our daily, seasonal and community lives. Instead of living a kind of lonely stress, dog-eat-dog, race for profits and survival of the fittest, those kind of lifestyles. Let's go for an alternative. And I'll have the latest about what's going on, what I'm presenting with Journaling Nature Folklore, the course, the next module, and other news as I think of it. So there's Nature Echoes Live, plus the growing nature folklore videos, articles, the photo library, the Journaling Nature Folklore course modules I just talked about, all brought to you due to the support of our very kind subscribers. And there's the subscriber link right there, which is, there's a free subscription. You get access to at least 40 very informative nature folklore articles. And then if you decide to upgrade to you can go straight in as a support subscriber. You get to enjoy the Journaling Nature Folklore course, which is a 20 modules course, 20 modules a year, but you can join at any time because it's a revolving course. It's not a linear one. And so each year I'm going to be adding to it, to the modules, so you get the latest updates to the modules as you go around the cycles of the year. And I will get going with the 4 seasonal online live workshops, and hopefully we'll have something quite local where we'll get together as well in person. But the cost is €5 a month online, or go for the 50% discount of €30 in your own currency. So thank you, support subscribers. Your support is why I'm still here, happily broadcasting for you, and it's all made possible thanks to your help. Now, with that show survival pledge, there's a lot of people who's joined in, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. Let's see who's around. We got Susan Samuel here. Sorry I'm late. No, you're not late. You've just come in right at the beginning. I've only just started. Oh, that's great. Yeah, great. You're in great form there, Susan. And Claire is here. She was actually here, but she's gone back to Dublin, and wishing us good evening tide there. Magical photo of the oats, and that's behind me, and looking forward to the stories. As I say, it's going to be a bit different. I thought it was late joining, says Susan. Great. Yes, I've just started. And here's Susan. She's in from Cheshire. There we go. There we go. Burton in Cheshire, which is delightful. So it's great to have you here. Thank you so much. So let's get started with, so say it's a little bit different. I think I've got more photographs this time, which you might be pleased to hear. Thank you, as mentioned earlier, for the unexpected response to when I did the 3 Cauldrons of Poesy last week. I put it together very quickly, and I think I went round in circles. It's a very difficult thing to interpret, but a lot of you got it, and I've had all kinds of response to it, and that I've received since last Sunday. And yeah, I'll put a cauldron up just to get us in the mood for that. And the response included a lovely offer from the illustrator and writer Sean Fitzgerald there. And he's currently working on the Holy Wells illustrations for Sarah Humble's big Holy Wells book. And that's not from the Holy Wells book, but that's typical of Sean's artwork. That's his style. You might have seen that on various magazines. You might have seen that style of our work. It's very uniquely Sean's when you see it. And so you've probably seen it in various places. But Sean, he's putting together a 3 Cauldrons book. It really is a way to express his art, and he asked me to contribute a chapter. And as I assume that Sarah Humble would do a lovely water-related one, and I must show you this one again. I love this. There's only 2 of them, but I forget where that is, but it's actually on a hill, and there's 3 pools there, only 2 in the photograph, and that's actually known as the 3 Cauldrons. So it seems very appropriate to what I feel Sarah Humble will do, and I bet she'll do a lovely water-related chapter. She's going to add a chapter to Sean's book. So assuming she's doing that, I avoided the temptation to do that. But instead, I'm relating to how our past Bards in the Woods sessions were wonderful opportunities for keeping our inner 3 cauldrons upright and filling. And that, as I showed last week, my daughter Ivy trying to attempt to fill one of the cauldrons there. And as Sean has not published the book yet, it'd be very unfair for me to actually give you even much of an inkling of what I wrote, other than I am relating to what we did on Bards of the Woods. And if some of you here may have joined in, some of you viewers, you know that we actually split Bards in the Woods into 3 different activities. Though the transition, how they happened, you might not realize they were 3 different activities. And that's what I have kind of put together as an understanding of the 3 cauldrons. Anyway, once Sean's book out, then of course I'll be all over it, sharing his book with you, and of course blowing my own trumpet with my own chapter, and some of the others, especially if Sarah's piece will be in there as well. So anyone else has arrived and questions? We got someone here. Rin, hello, Rinny from Springfield, Missouri, United States. Thank you for joining in with the rest of us. That's lovely. Thank you, Rin. I don't think you've been, have you watched this before? That's great. Well, I always love to get the new people. Anyway, on the next thing, as you may know, the Grandma's Call gathering. It was a lovely Lughnasadh event that was on the Sleven Kayak Bearer. Better known to most of you as Loughcrew. Let's get a picture up on this, show you give you an idea, sense of what was going on. And especially a lot of people familiar with KMT on Carnben East on Loughcrew. Let's get more of the photo in there. Rin's definitely saying hello to us there. Fabulous. And this was during the evening of the 7th of August. There was certainly aligned to sidereal time, which was excellent. And the idea was seeded by Ali Isaac, but was very quickly supported by other women, Val Murphy, Trish Reddy Palmer, Devil Diamond, and also Polly Gormley. And the photos I've got, very few of them, they actually were taken by those women. Sorry, I can't credit each of them because they all shared each other's photos, so I couldn't sort out who's who. But some of you may know, or contact one or more of these women, say Val Murphy, Trish Reddy Palmer, Devil Diamond, and Polly Gormley, all along with Ali Isaac. So the photos I'm sharing, as I say, I'm sharing them. I don't know who's this. So this is another one. This shows you the sort of gathering. It was a huge gathering, a huge success. It was quite amazing. And here's another one of them circling there, the cairn tea, which was quite fabulous. Now, this wonderful event, it was the idea of the wonderful hag writer and publisher Ali Isaac. She conjured up the germ of the idea last Imo. And I've not received or seen many photos online or video clips by women. So I was glad. It took quite a bit of poking around to find just those photos I've just shown you. The ones sharing, they've been hard to, here's another one. I found them quite hard to find. Anyway, what I did see were quite easy. Maybe it's who I'm linked up with on the Facebook, but the photos I saw, they were mainly by men. And strangely enough, the photos taken by men of that grandma's event were actually photos of other men. So I'm not putting those up. Maybe the women who were present, they were so connected to the event that the last thing they wanted to do was put a device between them and the experience of trying to record it. You know, they didn't want to have a device there just for the Facebook or whatever and lose the experience. And as I say, I didn't see anything from Ali featured. What we got here? Oh yeah, this is now this is, I think that's what I want to show you. One person that was there, which was lovely. She's not with us this evening, or she might be later. Was Breezy Kelly over the half door. There she is. She's there on the right, and that must be down in the Loughcrew centre somewhere. But she was there. I didn't see her actually in the crowd. You might have spotted her. But I was hoping Ali would be a guest here. I did invite her to be a guest here to joining and to explain her vision and her feelings of what happened at the Loughcrew gathering there. But we'll get a recording about her. And it'll be lovely to hear from her about that grandma's calling and her feelings on Loughcrew and about what she's doing right now, because she's going through a change of vocation and really focusing on the hag project she's doing. But I know Ali, she's very busy at the moment. She's with extended family who've come to stay with her, so very busy with that. So I hope we'll have her present here very soon. But if there's any of you here that are watching, maybe you're in the background, we've got quite a lot of viewers already, so maybe someone who hasn't made a comment yet. If you were at the Grandma's Call, that very intimate Lughnasadh event, please share how it was for you there in the comments. Or even if you were in another event with a Cailleach connection and reverence and gratitude, please share that with us. That'd be wonderful. Earlier today, La Dooley, who seems to be doing quite a lot of posts because he lives right by Loughcrew, and he posted on Facebook that there were OPW guides there because they gathered it was going to be a large crowd, so they obviously wanted to be there to supervise it. There was 4 of them, and they actually counted the number of people that were present there, and according to their figures, they said that there were 207 adults that attended, 33 children with the adults, so that's 240 people that were there for Lughnasadh event this year. Apparently last year there was 10 people, so that shows you how major that was. And so Grandma's Call, it was quite amazing because there was no budget. It was just organic development from an idea from Ali. There was no financial input, certainly no doctrine-based agenda. Ali doesn't have an agenda as such, other than inform and join in the conversation about the hag. But the network around that follow what Ali writes with the get-togethers aside hand, they were all inspired to help her out considerably. There were the 4 women I mentioned earlier. They were very active, but everybody was very active in the organic gathering and with their men partners as well and their children. I wasn't at the Sleeve Kayak Barrow myself, unfortunately. I'm still not able to actually climb it, but since my 3 Cauldrons broadcast, if you remember that picture from last week, there we go, and feedback from that, I've been thinking quite a bit this week. It's caused me to think a bit about the cauldrons, the corries, as they often pronounced, and those so-called she hills, the fairy hills, and the kayak hills that I talk about in folklore. And you often, I would think you would talk about them, read up about them, and quite fascinated by them. So maybe also prompted by the dark weather. We've had pretty dark here, dark days, many of them through July. I mean, June was very good, of course. And also this early August, very different to what we had last year because we were baking in the hot summer. Claire and I were off in Mayo and I was exploring Holy Wells. Claire was off on a cycle ride on the greenways there. So I haven't found it cold myself. I've noticed in conversations with people and online, offline, how people are saying they've been cold, they've been lighting fires. And on top of that, we've got this early display. I don't know what's going on. There's suddenly an early display of all this plastic Halloween tack that's around towns, and that's not helping us celebrate or in keeping with the passion for this season. So come on, we've barely started getting the harvesting. While all that stuff is up, the Valentine's stuff's going to be up before Christmas, I know. Anyway, you know, it does seem odd. There's all this tack going up, and farmers have not threshed away the grain because of the weather. And that's going to be delayed. I think a lot of the harvesting is actually going to start happening from the middle of this week when we're going to go into a dry spell at last. So what the heck's this so on stuff up? It shows what a disconnection to the seasons, especially traders had, and that's a bit of a hint about what the main feature is going to be when I get down to it this evening. Now, some leitrim farming people, they said that the kayaks crows, and I've got all that lovely oats harvest behind there, but the farmers around here have been actually reporting that more than ever, the kayaks crows and the kayaks deer, there's a relationship with the deer to the kayak, they've had a good munch on the crops on before harvest, especially the oats. They've been surprised how devastating it is. They've been in this situation of that looks as actually after the harvest, but that's the best photo I've got. But they've had that problem of deers coming in, and the deer can eat through a field pretty quickly. And the crows can have a pretty good time nibbling on the seeds as well. So it's been a bit of a hard time for the farming. Hopefully with the dry days forecast, the crops won't be hanging around in the field and the animals won't be taking them. But that's very challenging, isn't it? Anyway, I'd like to hear from any of you on any of your responses if you were at the Grandma's Call. So thank you for anything you're saying. I see Erica's coming here. Erica, let's see, what's Erica saying? Lovely photo behind. Hello, dear John. Lovely to have you on board, Erica. This is a bit different this evening, so thanks for joining. I've just been doing a review of a wonderful Lughnasadh session that was a Loughcrew, and also the lovely response I had to the three cauldrons, the Cauldrons of Poesy last week. And now Autumn, lovely to get someone through from the YouTube. We had a lot of people from YouTube last week, but no worries about being late. I haven't got to the main feature yet, which is I've been telling people it's going to be very different to the deep, I suppose, meaningful stuff that I've done in the past few weeks. I thought I'd give that a break. I get a little bit lighter today. But anyway, talking of light, I'm going to go on to kayak stuff right now. But many of you might have seen this. Thinking of the kayak, the underworld, the other world, and the water that flows underground here. Those of you, at least around Ireland, and probably by now many people overseas have gotten onto this, well, you probably picked up on the beautiful, compassionate writing of an article in the Irish Times. And I was really thrilled about this because journalism can be awkward. It can be nasty. I've had bad experiences with that where the reporters are nicey. Then when it hits the newspapers, it's a complete mess. Even Claire's had a music review that went in that direction, which was very sad, but it was also quite comical. But the lovely article that was put into the Irish Times, it was about the outstanding craft of Kate and Alan Burrows. We've had them on, and there they are. They're building willow coffins. I always joke that they're building bookcases. And then when it's nice to have those bookcases, and they're going to go for that. So you have those bookcases. So should there be time when you're passing, just rip some shelves out, maybe throw a few books in for the afterlife, so forth. But they're willow, made with willow, and obviously, as I've suggested, they can have a multiple purpose through their lifetime. But the article, it was posted a few days ago in the Irish Times. Absolutely wonderful. Irish Times does still have very good journalism. And Kate and Alan, they've actually been swamped with requests, with interviews, with radio, TV stations, podcasters. Everybody now wants them. I haven't even bothered to ask them because Kate has been a guest with us in the past a few times. But I'll wait and I'll get my turn, and we'll see what the update is here on Nature Echoes at some point. But as I say, what really impressed me is the quality. There is quality journalism out there still. So it's not all Sun, Daily Mirror, Daily Mail. And to me, the worst one I've had is the UK Independent. They gave me a real hard time in the past. They interviewed me on a subject. I said, oh, yeah, come along then. And the reporter was so nice and seemed so interested and compassionate with what I was doing, the subject. I won't go into details of what it was. And forever complimenting me and how generous it was and what a wonderful life. And it's good to have people like me in the world, so forth. Then when it got into the independent newspaper, all it did, it was an article telling everybody what an asshole I was. So, so I've never trusted journalism since. But anyway, Kate and Alan, they deserve this. And this is the lovely roundhouse that Alan and a few volunteers, Kate helped a bit. She decorated inside. And that's where the workshop is. And that's where the previous, if I can bring it up, that's where they were actually putting together that willow coffin. Beautiful place that they put together there. So their crafting is very unique. And I love their balance and connection amongst people that get involved with them, that come on courses. They're going to run courses because people, you know, this has got so popular, it would be pretty much impossible to go into production of these unless they run apprenticeships. And before they run apprenticeships, I think what they're going to offer is people to come to their workshops and learn how to build their own wicker coffin. And that's going to be very unique, a second level of uniqueness if they do that. And the lovely thing that I like about the willow is that once it does its job, that willow is going to come live. Some of it come up, and there you go, right above life renewed, and comes up and does its willow thing, maybe to create more materials for your descendants' coffins down the road, or their bookshelves. First of all, their bookshelves. So congratulations, Kate and Alan. That's truly wonderful. People have been coming on board. And Susan said she's got another one of those. It was so nice. And Erica, the bookshelf in the coffin. Books for the afterlife, indeed. I thought you'd get a chuckle out of that, Erica. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Right. What have I got? What am I going to talk about next? The big feature. As I say, I'm taking a chance with this, like I took a chance on the other polarity with the Cauldrons of Poesy last week. But can be talking about town high streets of all things. And I read a fine article yesterday within Positive News magazine. I thought, I've got to share that. There you go. If you are not familiar, the world's most uplifting news magazine. It's UK based, but the idea, they bring out a magazine because so much media is sort of war, murder, and pulling people down, and it's all negative. So they brought a magazine out. It's all just positive news, which is absolutely fascinating. I'm subscribed to it. I get it each week when it comes out, and there's a lovely thing. But this article struck out to me, and strangely, I haven't shared any other articles on Nature Echoes in the past, but this one felt absolutely necessary. And first, reading this article, and the article does go into the downside first of all, it reminded us of how downtowns, and this will be the same in North America and the UK as well. Well, to say this is UK published. Ireland's got a serious problem with this, or it did. And it reminded, this article reminded me how the downtowns have not only lost the high street shops, but many, these shops, and Claire talks about this often, how shops, they used to be where people lived upstairs. There's an old that's actually from a museum, but that's how it was. It's a reproduction exactly how it was. People did the trading downstairs and in shops, and they lived upstairs, and that's gone. And because the high street changed, they moved in chains over here like Specsavers, Foot Locker. Well, I think you got Foot Locker in the USA as well, that type of thing. And they're now those sort of chain high street shops, stores are all moving out and leaving. And this is how a lot of the high streets have suddenly come again. The downtowns are getting bared, often boarded up like that. And don't you think that makes the town look lost, and it's losing its identity? And if it loses identity, people lose their identity. It loses its community spirit, which is very sad. People are traveling further out to do their shopping, and they're not getting together with people. So what positive news served us with some lovely examples of how this is now changing in the high street into a positive direction, and really suggesting, can this spread further? So to me, this is still an appropriate article for now. It's an appropriate article for nature folklore, and I hope that makes sense as I go through this. Especially when we think how the small towns were once buzzing with the this time of year. It's very much a Lughnasadh thing. They were once buzzing. I remember that as a child. They, even in the 50s, they'd be buzzing with the rural harvest pickings would be coming into town. There'd be tractors everywhere with trucks, and sometimes it'd be horse and carts with yields as well, with the dray horses. So they all moved into town for their post-harvest swaps, barter, trade, all that good stuff. And at the same time, after the trade, the debts would be cleared. Farmers would get some money in the bank. There'd be fairs as well. There's still fairs that go on that celebrate the Lughnasadh, the harvest time. And when you got the fair, that does draw the community together very closely. And people love the fairs and the shows. That's what really brings the people together. I'm glad we still have that a fair bit, even though it might have lost the taste of how it was. And as I say, positive news, it's a UK publication. So their examples they put in their article, they tend to be very UK based, but I recognize them here over in Ireland. And for example, they mentioned Poole in Dorset. Let's get, there you go. Poole is a beautiful place. Look, it's a huge beach, and and in the summer that gets very emerald. It's one of the nicest places on the South England coast towards the southwest. So it's a beautiful, known as a beautiful tourism centre. It was once a thriving marketplace, still a lovely, well-kept town. That's a typical Dorset small town. And it was a marketing place for agriculture. It was a big place for smugglers too. A lot of smugglers coming over from France, from northern Spain, certainly Brittany. So again, there'd be a lot of trade going on, and the smugglers would be arriving about now too, because the winds would be in their favor. And of course, people sold they've made their money on their harvests, and so there's money to spend on the smugglers. So anyway, much of the trade union movement as well. I forget the details. The trade union movement wasn't just started up by cooperatives up in Rochdale in Yorkshire. It was actually in Dorset, in Poole, which is surprising when you go there, because it seems like a very conservative kind of place now. So it has changed a bit. But the shops and trading places, like everywhere else, or like many places, they all became deserted. And so the town kind of risks declining to become derelict. And what happened in Poole, many landlords agreed, we can't have this continue. So what they did was actually allow their property to people with ideas who wanted to get into business, let them have the property rent free. let independent small businesses bring the town alive again by having the property rent-free, because by being in it, at least there's someone dealing with, there's air coming in, warmth and so forth. So it helps the fabric to the building, slows down any dereliction. And people in business, they're going to do little parts to actually make their premises better. So this is all to the advantage of the landlord. So they just let it free. And this is what Paul did. And then they said, let's talk about rent when you actually start getting some profits. Otherwise, just be in there rent-free, get this town alive again. And I love the positive news approach to thinking in this article. They think well beyond the idea of just shops in a high street. Now, they mention Wandsworth, that's southwest London, isn't it? And there's Debenhams, big chain. There's a former Debenhams there. There's now the local community have encouraged it to become an entertainment centre. It features go-karting, live music. It's very much a wonderful big community centre because there's a large population there. A lot of that might not be for me, but those are popular activities with a lot of people, so well worth a while. Now, something I did like the sound of is probably those of you who visit London often have noticed this, that food halls popping up everywhere. I think Harrods probably started the trend of this, but there was a former BHS site, British Home Store site on Oxford Street, once a very lively department store. That's now become the UK's largest food market. I think I've got a picture of that there. There we go. That's the former inside converted the British Home Stores. And the nearest, I think, island's got to that. They've got the big English market in Cork. And I gather there's a big market in Limerick that's similar to that. So the food halls are really catching on. And of course, that's benefiting. The food halls are getting a lot of benefit because Oxford Street has actually become a pedestrians-only street. So it really goes together. Now, other ideas working in high streets. I love this one. I'd not really heard of it until I looked into it. Probably you're familiar with this. Is shared public living rooms. This is like down the high street. Some shops have opened up as public living rooms. Some of them have opened up as shared workspaces, like people bringing stuff in for repairs, repair cafes. I think they've become popular as well. So that's all very different from just doing a string of cafes. So this is all about turning the high street into more community, into anything that relates more to local needs. So the one thing that makes this unique is how the community of a town brings this together and encourages this. It's going to be different from town to town. It's not going to be centralized. It's not going to be chain story. So you don't have that chain store attitude. And because the chain stores have closed, gone away, it just shows that hasn't been sustainable. Yet the community spirit of the high street before there was the Industrial Revolution, that was sustainable for hundreds of years. So it does work. And another thing that comes from people who can't afford to perhaps dress up a shop quickly, or maybe their wares are limited, like harvests, and then when they got the harvest sold, they got to go back to the farm. So you got a lot more leniency in legislation that allows for pop-up shops. There we go. Yeah, they're like this. There's a pop-up bakery there as an example. So there's more pop-up shops appearing in high streets. As I say, this is very much UK based, but because a lot of legislation and bureaucracy is kind of sliding to allow this. They'll get the health inspectors, of course, but there's a lot more freedom to do that, which is very helpful for the high streets. And you got pop-up markets. There you go. There's an example there of a reuse, repurpose. And that's definitely very pop-up, pop-down at the end of the day, but it's very popular. And that could be more popular everywhere, I'm sure. So these pop-up ideas, they seem to work during local festival times as well. Seasonal festivals like a harvest festival or Lughnasadh right now being a good example of that. And sometimes you'll find an empty high street becomes the reason to create and hold a festival because that not only brings the season back to life, it brings the high street, it brings the town, it brings the rural people in to have a day, and you start meeting people you might not see that much. So it really gets a nice communication between the rural traditions and lifestyle with the small towns as well. And there's a retail guru. I think I've got a picture up there. She is. Her name's Mary Porter. So I don't know if you're familiar with her. And she's forecasting, I think she's from the USA. You might be able to confirm that. But she is forecasting very soon there's going to be a huge growth in what she calls the kindness economy. And these kindness economy is retail space businesses that will, like the way family-owned shops used to be, that somehow they contribute. They're not just selling stuff, they're contributing to making life better for local people. And Mary describes this as starting and supporting businesses who actually put priority back again. Their priority is people and how people are with caring for the planet. Thinking when I was familiar with small shops, high street, small town, going into town, it was community with the people. There was very much a background there that we took for granted. That was very much about sustainability. There was a lot of stuff. We took our bags in, we bought stuff loose, and there just wasn't any waste. There was an incredible connection. And certainly when you kind of, in a community, you suggest things to be more sustainable and better habits. So of course the idea with that is by following the idea of kindness economy. The one thing you're doing, you're definitely not got a priority on a journey to profit. So the customer supporters are going to be aware that any business does have expenses, and they have to be covered in business to be sustainable. But that can work with community-driven support. And here's a community-driven business that's about to open there, a lovely example of that. And what that means is shops in any retail spaces that focus way beyond being transactional and serving people just for the profit only. I know one of the things that people are getting very annoyed about is how supermarkets, I mean, supermarket is one step above from the local shop anyway. But now the supermarkets are getting rid of their tellers and it's self-serve. I mean, that's totally uncommunity, and that's getting people very annoyed, it seems. The idea is how can we prevent retail spaces getting away from that transactional priority that's really driving profit for the whims of distant shareholders who never see the business. They're just there for the bit of profit. How do we turn that around? So with the idea here with this business, what about if the main focus is on providing excellent service and also learning product knowledge and service knowledge of what they do, sharing that with the people that they serve, and even running courses, you know, for some of the people, they can learn of how to apply what they're selling and the services they're sharing. So that again becomes very community-based, and that expands on the idea of just selling people something and bye-bye, that's your lot. So where possible, this idea is providing spaces in a high street, in a town, where people can get together within the town, within the nearby rural communities, because the villages might not have the facilities for doing that, especially more small villages. The small towns still have greater facilities. One of the ones these days is you go into the small town because the internet's faster. Or if you're not familiar with how to work some of the internet stuff, someone in the town will probably more likely teach you. That's one modern example of that. So the UK, they've recently enjoyed the surgence of bookshops. That's definitely a big thing that's going on. And they serve everything I've just been talking about. You know, it's not just about selling books. And I'm seeing this, we're seeing this happening around Ireland too as well. which is wonderful, because before the COVID, before the pandemic, bookshops were closing down because they couldn't pay for their rates, they couldn't pay for their taxes. It was in a hell of a state. These independent bookshops were closing down, people ordering from Amazon and the other chain of bookstores, and the whole community spirit of the bookstore was getting lost, because the bookstores themselves were becoming like Foot Locker type chains. But now the small book shop is nearly coming into its own, especially now that more people are writing and they need outlets for their work. They don't want their outlets just to be Amazon. They want the local people involved in what they're doing. So these small bookshops, and the way they're done as a community sport, they become an incredible support for local writers that encourages more writers. And one of the things I talk about a lot through nature echoes, especially nature folklore, and especially on my journaling folklore course, is the idea of getting that voice out. And one of the good ways of doing that is get writing. And when you get writing, you're making articles, you're making doodles of your thoughts and your experiences. Eventually, that's going to come out as books, poetry books, popular. You're going to bring out chapbooks. Why not have the local bookshop as actually being your venue for this? Because it's very booky. In fact, often it's much better than a local theatre. I think if you go with your book to a local theatre, you've got to have music, you've really got to have backcloths, you've got to turn it into a show and into theatre. In a bookshop, you just turn up, you have the books, rows of books behind you. You might not even need a microphone, and you just read from your book, answer questions. It becomes an intimate support. I love the whole idea of that. Anyway, so if it encourages local writers, that's a fantastic thing. So there we go. Bookshops, they're not only a place for selling work, but you can share work in performance. That man does have a microphone, which actually is a very good idea, because it's amazing how many writers, when they read their books, they whisper, and after the second, third row, you can't hear what they're saying. So it's pretty good. They man whispering into his microphone there. If that was me, I'd bellow it, so they'd have to pull the microphone away. But that's great. In performance, you get very wonderful, pleasant social interchange through the questions, and then meeting up afterwards, and hello, what do you think of that? Nice to see you, all that great stuff. It might even be a cup of tea and a biscuit for you afterwards. And another area this has really come on, and it brings back memories for a lot of older people, is getting together, the revival of vinyl books, record shops. The sales of vinyl records is going through the roof right now, probably more than CDs, and the price of them. I mean, people sell the vinyl, their vinyl recordings. They have to at quite a high price. I think probably vinyl records are selling 20 to 30 euros each, but people are loving this revival of record shops. Of course, there's second-hand vinyls that does a great change, and though I haven't got any pictures of it, I see the same happening in gardening centres. Instead of gardening centres just being a place to sell nursery stuff to make your garden pretty, people are actually coming into them to share their gardening experiences and teaching people how to do things in the garden just like that. So the garden centres are becoming very much community focused rather than out just for a profit. That's one thing that's moving in, especially people who are starting up new garden centres, this new, more organic, more permacultural approach to gardening. So they're more community than profit. Anyway, there's been lots of lovely comments. I see the numbers watching going up. Lovely to see Wendy back. Lovely to accompany reading of my books with my harp. Yeah, that's gorgeous, Wendy. And I hope you do some of that in the bookshops too. Well, I encourage that. Wonderful. And Trish Reddy Palmer, lovely to have you in. Ears must have been burning. Love the harvest scene. One of the grandma calling people there. Lovely. Well, can you put in a few words of your experience? I'm sorry I can't. I wish I could actually get you in to say a few words on that one. I forgot how to do the tech to do that. It is possible. Anyway, where we got fairy tales are old and new and old here. Everything is open now. We only wear masks in medical, dental facilities. Yeah. I know people are kind of worried a bit with the new strain going on. I've noticed because unfortunately I do have to go for medicals every now and again, but I've noticed in the last week the medical people are putting their masks on again. They're not asking us to; it's still voluntary. But I notice it's amazing how many people in the outpatients are coming in with masks on. It drives me nuts as it is with anyone. So hopefully, I think people are going to let this ride like the flu or a cold. It doesn't seem too serious. But here we go. After I featured her early over the half door. Hello, Breezy, and young fella from the hills. And you, I had a picture of you from the hills, from the Grandma's Calling as well, there, Breezy. So thank you very much for joining in. A little bit different, as I say, today. This is how my town looks, and we have lots of festivals. Very wonderful. What town is that, Fairy Tales? Let us know that and a little bit about what goes on with your people as well. Going back, looks delicious at the bakery, yeah. And yeah, I thought that would get going. Wendy, and an earlier comment here. Whoops, there was an earlier comment. Lovely idea to keep the community alive. They should do that here too. I'm surprised. I would have thought in the Netherlands they would be ahead of the game on that, especially with lots of creative people that you've got. Especially, I would have thought in your area, in Delft, and I know Rotterdam because. When many years ago, when I was working with the Bath Arts Workshop, we went to Rotterdam, and we were jealous way back then with how far advanced they were compared with what we were doing and what our town allowed us to do. There we go. Eric says the younger generation are rediscovering the healthier community lifestyle, such as independent shops with apartments upstairs, chickens in the backyard. That's a big thing, and I think it's still the case. Westminster, near the government and Housing of the Commons. The one thing that they've never taken away, and it's been around since medieval times, they encourage the people of Westminster because there's quite a residential population there, and they have back gardens, and they've always encouraged since Middle Ages for everybody to have chickens. And through the Second World War, they really brought that on and gave people help. And I think there's still grants available for people in Westminster around the government area there to actually have chickens and eggs. It's still highly encouraged. But thank you. Yeah, definitely, Erica. Thank you very much. Have I missed anybody else here? Right, bookshelf coffee. I think I've covered everybody. Thank you all for those lovely comments. And Anne Elliott's arrived here. Good evening, John. Thank you, Anne, for joining in. And yeah, Deep South USA, very good. I'm going to be saying a little bit about that. I'm a little bit familiar with what's going on there. So thank you. Yes, festivals, they're very good on that. That part of the USA, absolutely brilliant for bringing community together in different things. I totally agree. I'm glad to read that as well. So when people become community around their high street shops, their retail spaces, this also, I think, nurtures the idea, if I get the picture up, of reviving more empty spaces into community ownership. There we go. There are local village people there, again, UK based, but so they've got some property there. I think it was a post office, that one. Village store and post office coming under community ownership. And many people, of course, they see these empty places. They've got their careers, they've got their vacations, they've got their projects. They don't regard themselves as shopkeepers. So they don't want to run a retail space by themselves, but they would love to be part of it as a hobby. Oh, I give my support for a few hours a week. Yeah, a lot of people will do this. So a lot of them initially set up a pop-up space, and a lot of people set up pop-ups. I know West Country Willows, Kate and John earlier, that's how they started off. They had pop-up spaces with their willows. They still do that in markets, at festivals. And the last thing they would think of is open up a retail place. So a lot of people, they wanted to take that longer. So the idea then, even with a pop-up, is set up a community co-op to run maybe the pop-up space to start with, then that evolves into a shop. The pop-up space may be in an empty premises if you can get the landlords to agree to leniency, like I've been talking of, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that shortly. So what happens with when the local people form a corp to manage a local premises, everyone gets a turn in its day-to-day operations. Obviously, there's weekly meetings or something, but it means most people, they just commit to a few hours a week, and you get something like this, where the community here are supporting with a village shop, village general stores, post offices, also car repair shops are turning in. There's been cooperative car repair shops where people, where you get a few good mechanics, and they train other people to be good mechanics, because if you're like me, it's so hard to find a mechanic you can trust. If you've got a community shop doing this, I think I'd take my car along all right. If you knew the one or two people really knew what they were doing and supporting other people. So I think one thing that, as awful as the pandemic was and how awfully restrictive it was with its rules, I think it actually did encourage a resurgence of community spirit, where people were allowed to be with the community, because that was limited as well. But how it encouraged community spirit is you couldn't travel very far. So whereas you might go to things or personal interests where you might travel 20 miles to meet up with your friends, you suddenly realize that if I'm going to socialize, it's got to be with my neighbors. And some people, that might be the first time they've done that for several years. So you've got this community spirit, the renewed connection with the local people, local areas, because that's all we were allowed to explore during that pandemic. So by doing that, I think it's brought back the habits of the old, when, in old times, again, thinking of my childhood times in the 50s, very few people then could afford to buy cars. So because they hadn't got cars, there was bus services, okay, but people were quite happy just sticking around their own villages, going to the small towns on the weekend maybe. So they didn't travel about as far. There certainly wasn't a quick weekend over to Spain, things like that. So, and there was no internet. So they couldn't do social this, that, and the other on the internet with people around the world. So people were very much limited their social, and they were happy with it around the local community, the local pub, the local village hall, and in each other's homes, and sharing things, and then off maybe to the local town at the weekends. So positive news, they stated actually that, if I've got this right, they stated that with the UK, I hope I got that right, with the UK high streets community-owned shops, it showed 94% survival rate of community-owned shops that were put together, not just around the pandemic, but just before. And when you get a community place, I'll keep that for a little bit. When you've got a community enterprise like that, what happens is, and then again, UK-based, when they researched into it, they found out that it's about 56 pence of every pound that's spent in a local trading place like this. It stays in the community. It doesn't go off elsewhere. You're not actually going off to another town and spending your money, and the profits are not going to go off to the Caribbean and into same offshore banks that are used by the cartels, that type of thing. It's kept in the community. And so that's a huge advantage of cooperative spaces. Everything is pumped right back into the community. And some UK cooperatives are now campaigning to introduce community right to buy laws. And what that'll do, and they're talking about this in Ireland as well, is forcing unused, neglected properties back into the market, where they can actually be bought by a community cooperative trust. So you can form a cooperative to actually get a premises on that. And I think the credit unions would help with that. We have the credit unions in Ireland, and I'm sure they'd be a huge support on that. But the University of London, they also claim that during the lockdown, that there was an immense startup boom of very small businesses. I know some of them could not get out and about much. A lot of it had to be online and through delivery. But the University of London estimated that more than 400,000 independent startups were formed in the UK during 2020, and this included barbers, beauty salons, despite the lockdown. And grocers even started up. And this actually happened around Ireland, where grocers, farmers especially, who couldn't perhaps get their stuff, people who grew vegetables, they couldn't get their stuff to the markets easily. Or if the markets were open because of distance restrictions, people couldn't get to the market. So he started up as grocers that started up with businesses that started with home deliveries during the lockdown. And but I did hear during the lockdown, people started up ice cream parlors, which obviously you couldn't call up home delivery, I don't think. But that did help a lot to make this more modern high street revival much more possible. So surely that's got to be much more better for sharing relationship between small businesses and the landlords. This is what's going to happen. This is the relationship between landlords and small businesses has got to change fast, even with the councils. This idea, abominable way of fixed rents, fixed rates, blah, 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 because landlords seem to be so self-sabotaging with their stubbornness and demanding the rents that they ask for. You pay the rent I ask for, or just get out, or don't even bother to rent. I feel it's so essential now that we have flexibility and sharing the risks. That's essential for startups to actually happen. But because if we have turnover-based rents that reflect the takings of individual stores, that works very well. And also, I believe to help this, even though some businesses think there's a risk, I do believe in keeping leases much shorter as well. It doesn't put so much of a noose around your neck. And I mentioned this about the South. We're talking about the South. I saw this when I lived in near Daytona in Florida during the 90s. This happened there. And the downtown there is a beautiful downtown area, but all the businesses were boarded up, empty. Barely any business was operating, and they'd all gone off to the malls. There was a massive mall to the west of Daytona that people went off to, Volusia Mall. And so downtown Daytona, it wasn't on the beach, so all the businesses closed up. So what the landlords did there, they got together and they decided that renting businesses, if they rented out businesses, let businesses come in and we'll charge rents according to the profit that the businesses make. So what happened was they invited new businesses to come into their property. It was rent-free for 6 months. And then after the 6 months, it was a small nominal rent for additional 6 months. I think it was about $50 or $60. That's all it was for the month. And then when taxes were calculated after the year and each year, they would want to see a copy of the taxes and the profits. And then they would base the rent on the profit. I don't know how much. I think it might be 20, 30% of the profit, 20%, I think. So nobody lost. And it gave flexibility for the business to grow. And this was a huge success. So you've got something like this. Is a fairly recent picture of Daytona downtown, kept very nice. And all the businesses along the downtown, all those premises have got businesses going on. And so it's all businesses going on, not just during Bike Week. And before I left there, I actually saw Bo Diddley live in front of their downtown. There's a nice little park. And that wasn't long before his passing. Anyway, I see something happening in the Ren fairs, especially in North America there. And they tend to have a sheriff. And that's not a sheriff. There we go. You get a person like this dressed up all red fairy, the sheriff. And his job is to go around the stores and check on their turnover, check on their profit. And then he demands 20% of the profit. And that's how the rent fair is paid for, instead of charging a fixed rent. I think some of them might be fixed rent plus a section of the profit, but it's very fair. Everybody wins. And certainly never really blame online shopping for the demise of the high street. Yeah, a lot of the trade went there, but I think rather than put the blame, and this is something that was put forward by this article, is seek how to integrate the online community with the local community. And apparently still over a quarter of the UK businesses, they don't have any online presence yet, even the surviving downtown high street businesses. And that could be as much as a third in Ireland. They still rely on the yellow pages. They still think, the yellow pages are bringing the business, and that's all they need to do. But their online presence, it can amazingly draw people Let's see. There we go. And recently, the fairy tales are saying not only draw people to use the cafes, use the shops, get the gifts, get a few nice, fresh local foods. It can draw people into getting together and having fun with high street festivals, events. The Flying Mullingar just now, huge event for that. Although there was a whole of Ireland, but it would do Mullingar amazing. All the small businesses there would be sharing out a spending power of about 50 million euros. So you can get the big ones, you get the small ones, and a lot of the rural people will be out to it. I'm going to talk about that in my own case shortly. And there again, if the stuff's online by those high street businesses, downtown businesses, there's always that option to order local stuff online if you can't get into town or can't get it in town. And postal delivery services, they're really gearing up for this. So trying to think, Pip, who sells the tents that he picks up that have been dumped at big festivals, and he kind of goes around, he repairs them, cleans them up, and he used to go around in his van delivering them. People would order them. And one thing he discovered, he could go into the post office, and he could order a book of single-priced €5 sticker stamps that he could just put packaging around the tent that he sold, put the €5 stamp on, as simple as that, and they can go to anywhere in Ireland. So even Ampost, making it simple for a small business to do online trading with something as simple as that. Wonderful stuff. So I think it'd be wonderful to return to these old days where rural people could return to their local towns with their harvested wares. I've got some harvested wares here. There we go. That's not exactly harvested wares, but behind them there is. But there again, people come in to swap. They enjoy the crack, or any kind of trade, and this all keeps the high streets alive again. But as they're doing it as a community rather than as a trading place, and then they let the organic trading pay for it all amongst the crack. So what we got going on here? We got extra people. Boris is around. Anyone need firewood can split? Community effort. Yeah, they say go to Boris's and drop your wood. Yeah, I can. Boris would understand what I'm talking about. He's very much into that spirit of things as well. So if you can contact him, it'd be a great help with your firewood if you get together with him. And there's fairy tales here. If I can get his comment up, it's not coming up. There he is. Yes, bring back the old days. Yeah, I wouldn't say, let's make the old days new days, because we'll have a different way of doing it. I sort of go back with the sort of violin out talking about the 50s, but bring that back to there and we'll make it something very different, really. So it wouldn't be the old days, it'd be the new days, learning from those old days. Right, Heritage Week, talking about the old ways. It's Heritage Week. It started up in yesterday. Here in Ireland, and it's going on until Sunday the 20th, next Sunday. So Heritage Week is 9 days because it involves 2 weekends. And this year's theme invites you to explore the traditions and practices. I'm going on a long time today again, aren't I? Anyway, the idea of it's Heritage Week is to explore traditions, practices that might be from the old. I'm trying to line up some pictures here. And all the knowledge and skills that have been passed down through generations and the recent revival. So even Heritage Week is kind of, though they don't realize it, and it's amazing how it matches up with what I've been talking about this afternoon. And I would have liked to have attended the Holy Wells Day that was in Bala, County Mayo, north of Ballina today, because they had a lovely gathering there around the Holy Well that has a hawthorn growing out of the roof after its cover. But another one nearby, they were running the steam loco and coach on the preserved bit of the Leitrim and Cavan Railway, and there it is there. That was being run all day today. Hopefully I'll get to have a go on that early next Sunday, because they don't run the steam loco very often because they say they need a lot of volunteers. But they've got quite a section that railway used to run from Dromod, because the main Sligo, Dublin Sligo Railway is right next to it. So people used to get off of that. They get on that and jump on the train to go to Mohill, by where I live here, onto Ballinamore. And I haven't found out if the passengers actually went on further north into Cavan. I think that might have been just freight. And obviously the post, the mail, went up there as well. So anyway, it doesn't go all the way to Mohill anymore, but they've preserved quite a nice bit of track, gives you a nice ride there. So that's one of the things. So, but next Sunday I'm attending this, and Claire's going to be with me as well. It's an afternoon event presented by the Leitrim Hawthorn Project, which is very exciting. They got going at the beginning of this year before the Hawthorns came out. The meetups in Drumshambo, County Leitrim, and the Loch Allen Centre, as they call it. That's the Adventure Centre. That's the south end of Loch Allen. And Claire and I are going to be there performing Hawthorn poetry, which is poetry, song, and harp all together at one point. Hopefully we'll be attending. Might jump on that train at 1 o'clock, get up to Drumshambo and get there in time for 3:30 for the Hawthorn stories. And then at 4:15, as you see there, is the health and therapy stuff, demonstrations, sharing with the Hawthorn there. And then 5 o'clock, the Hawthorn themed songs, music, dance, and later a bit of poetry as well. So I think Claire and I will be doing our wee thing about 6-ish or just after. So all that is happening, or not just because of Heritage Week, but also because the hawthorn berries are just coming out for harvesting too. So next Sunday, Nature Echoes is bound to be a hawthorn themed, because we'll be dashing back from the Hawthorn event. I'll be here with you with Nature Echoes, covering all kinds of stuff, hawthorn, mythology, folklore, what to do with hawthorns, and there'll be a bit on apple harvesting too. But this has been going on. I've still been preparing for the show. I think it's now time for Nature Echoes to try moving from Sundays again. I'm considering moving Nature Echoes to midweek. At present, I'm actually looking to go to 7 p.m. because the nights are getting longer. Daylight's getting shorter. So I think the 9 p.m. purpose is coming to an end. So I think, what do you think? Go to 7 p.m. on Tuesday. That'll be from 2 weeks' time. Next Sunday, it will be 9 p.m. at night. But then the next one after that will be Tuesday, 29th of August on 7 p.m. And that might be more attractive. I've been trying to get live guests because I miss having live guests on. That might be a more attractive time for them to join in with us. Well, let's see what anything I've missed that you're saying. Erica Gray, Minnesota Renaissance Fest, 50 years old, became a bit more mainstream, but I still love it. Maybe I'll cycle back around in a few years. Enjoy your Heritage Festival. Thank you for being with us and commenting, Erica. That's wonderful. Wonderful to have you here, and wonderful to say hello. And I hope it looks like everything's wonderful for you right now. So, Substack, what's going on? You maybe wonder why I've gone from the epic of posting daily chapters of the first harvest and the crom dove, crom croak. Now you wonder, where's he gone? Well, I've actually been preparing all kinds of content around apples and autumn fruits. They're going to be in the next Journaling Nature Folklore module, which is the next thing that's going to go up. That's going to be loaded early in this coming week. It's in 3 parts, but I'll get all 3 parts up in the week. And that's for the supporting paying subscribers there, if you want to join in. Excuse me, I'm losing voice, which is not surprised. That's why I like guests. Anyway, so thank you for people who have been part of that, the supporting guests. But then after that, I'm going to have 3, maybe 4 free articles to finish off the first harvest. But that's going to be about apple. That's going to be focused on apple folklore and apple harvest as well. And then I'll try to post another one, maybe 2 more course modules, and then get started on my next epic. There'll be a bunch of free articles, and they'll stay free for a fairly short time this time. This is my big series on the alehouse wives, and that will take me from end of this month, maybe early September. That'll keep going right up to close to Samhain. So thank you for joining me and for supporting me with Substack. There it is there. let's see, someone else has come on. Yeah, of course, reminder here from Trish Reddy Palmer, one of the wonderful people with Grandma Calling, Loughcrew Megalithic Centre, several events for Heritage Week, and certainly Google, Facebook it as well, Facebook search will come up with a lot for that. And also look forward to hearing about more about the hawthorn berries. And I look forward to presenting that. Thank you for watching this Nature Echoes. I still got a bit more to share. But consider subscribing, as I'm begging there. If better take this off for the moment, because it's what keeps this show alive. Free subscription does bring you at least 40 informative nature folklore articles each year. But if you upgrade to become the support subscriber, you get my Journaling Nature Folklore course, and that includes 20 course modules that you can join in. I'm going to get going with the get-togethers with those, because there's quite a lot of people on the course now. And it's a revolving course, not a linear one, so you can join in any time. And even each year, there's going to be updates to add to that, so it never sort of wears out. Cost is €5 a month, or go for the 50% discount, which is only €30 a year in your currency. There's a lot of people complaining that's too low price now, and even Substack are saying give it up to 50, but we'll hold it for that for now. So thank you, support subscribers. It's why I still keep broadcasting. I do have annual subscriptions and monthly ones to keep this broadcast going, but so your help takes this show a long way. Coming up next, Nature Folklore, it looks like, as I've been saying, the hawthorn harvest is going to be quite a major theme. Also, the apples too. People are floating in more comments here. And Erica, appreciate sending love to you, and to Claire. Thank you so much for that. And Breezy enjoyed the show. Thank you very much. She understands what community spirit is around where she lives. She posts a lot on Facebook about that. Very much a living example of what I've been talking about today. So thank you. I really enjoyed being with you this evening. It's the longest one I've done for a long time, even longer than the 3 Cauldrons, which I'm surprised. But if you're watching this as a replay, keep posting the comments, put some questions in, and I do come back from time to time to reply. On the YouTube, you'll see the bell icon, and that will remind you of what's on the following week, each week. So it leaves me to wish you a wonderful week of lovely wonder, inspirations. And I've lost my, it's funny, just at the end I get a bit of a tech issue, but I think I'm sorting it out very quickly, just right at the very end for you. So enjoy a safe week, wonderful time of wonder, inspiration, all those lovely enchantments that comes from those. A bit different subject today, but I trust you'll be out there and enjoying the enchantments, getting the inspirations, becoming those writers that get into these local bookshops. That all comes from the presence of nature, wood, water, and the mysteries of nature, mystery and wonders of them. So I hope you'll all be with me next Sunday. Until then, that's pretty much all I got. Play well, and bless you, and have a fantastic week until we meet up again. So that's all I got. Thank you very much. Bye. Bye.